My name is Jessica Cruz and I am the CEO of NAMI California. So my mother is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I think that she would argue that she's also been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, PTSD, that sort of thing. So she's had several diagnoses, but the most recent one is borderline personality disorder. So being a child of somebody who's living with a mental illness is, I think, different than maybe having a child who's living with a mental illness. Growing up, I didn't know any different. She was always my hero, the pillar of strength within our family. Yeah, there were ups and downs, and now looking back, I realized that sometimes when handling the downs, they were maybe a little bit more extreme, or even the ups were a little bit more extreme. But you know, growing up with my mom, it was a fine childhood. I didn't really notice until she was 50. And that was when I was 23 years old, I walked into the house and she handed me the phone. And it was Heritage Oaks Psych Hospital on the other line. And immediately they said, your mom feels like harming herself, and so you need to bring her to the hospital. So it wasn't until she was 50 that I actually realized, okay, something's happening. And I think she actually realized something was happening. That was the first time she was hospitalized in an inpatient psych hospital, but it was the first of many at that point. So I have two younger sisters who are much younger. They're my half sisters. They're 9 and 11 years younger. So they had a very different childhood than I did. They experienced a lot of the, I guess, manic behaviors a little bit more than I did. I kind of came in as I was the one that they called when they needed somebody to come pick them up. So when mom locked them out of the house or barricaded them, you know, from coming inside, or, you know, mom and stepdad were fighting and it became too much, I was the one that they called. And there was a point in our lives where my sister, my youngest sister, who was a senior at the time in high school, came and lived with my husband and I for about 6 to 8 months. She lived with us. So for a majority of her senior year, we took care of her, and we had our young daughter at the time. So it kind of impacted our life in that way. And I went from being kind of the daughter to the caregiver. You know, making sure that she was okay. I had this sense of responsibility, I felt like, to make sure that she was okay, that the family was okay, that things were stabilized in some way, shape, or form. So it kind of impacted our family. It also impacted our relationship. So my mom, like I said, has always been my hero. She's always been somebody in my eyes, and still to this day is, as a strength that she has within her. And even now, looking back at the last 15 years that she's, you know, been hospitalized until now, I still see her as having this strength. But our relationship has definitely gone up and down. Sometimes not talking to one another. It wasn't until I took the family to family class that I realized how to communicate with my mom, what kind of boundaries I needed to set for myself too. I couldn't change what was happening. I could only be there to support, but what did support look like, and what is her diagnosis, and how can I help her, and how can I advocate for her and then for myself? So when I think she realized, because she reached out to somebody when she was having suicidal thoughts, she reached out at herself. And so I think that day she realized something's off, something's wrong. And ever since that day, it's been up and down. And there were a few years right after she was in the inpatient at Heritage Oaks that, you know, she was in and out of jobs and trying to kind of figure herself out, and been diagnosed with several different diagnoses. So being off and on medication, trying to figure out kind of what does life look like with, you know, managing this illness. And so I think now she's living well. She lives in Montana, so it's a little bit further away from me, but we do connect, and she's connected to a good doctor there. Her husband has the supports that he needs for her. But I think it was a journey for her to kind of acknowledge what was happening, and also figuring out what does that mean for her life, and what are her triggers, and how does she live with them and manage them. So recovery means, to me as a family member, it's not a linear journey. It's definitely something that's up and down and around. And for me, it's about making sure that our family is understanding and supported, and that although my mom is the one diagnosed with a mental health condition, that it really does impact all of us. And so making sure we take care of one another, make sure we talk about it in an open, honest, and kind way. But then I think resilience is also that you can fall, and you can fall hard, but getting back up really kind of shows your true character. And again, like my mom, for me, the fact that she has fallen, and she's fallen hard, that she's been able to get back up, just shows her true strength and solidifies that she is my hero in so many ways. So May is Mental Health Month. For me, as a CEO of NAMI California, is very exciting month, because we're able to spread the word to people who may not know or talk about mental illness in the same way that we do at NAMI California. So it's a way to show people that it's okay to talk about it. It's really about changing the conversation. It's about making sure that my children, who are 9 and 6, have a different conversation about mental illness, and their services that they may or may not access in the next generations will be much different than they are today. So although it's a singular month out of the year, for us, it's a way to show that changing the conversation is going to have a long-term impact, because we deal with mental illness every single day of the year. But it's a way for us to show our resilience, and that recovery is possible, and that we're not alone in this journey.